Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. So, College Football 27 just got its first major patch. The first thing that stands out is the blocking work. A big part of the patch is aimed at pancake blocks happening too often. And I know a lot of people were noticing that kind of thing becoming a little wild in certain situations. The team said they took a two-part approach here, so they lowered the frequency a bit and also adjusted coaching behavior to help address the root of the issue. That matters because if one weird animation starts showing up too much, it can completely throw off the feel of a drive. They also tuned the way aggressive blocking and defender aggression interact, which should make those outcomes feel more like they belong in the moment instead of just popping off constantly. On top of that, blocking, targeting, and assignment logic got improved. Receiver and defensive back block outcomes were balanced better. Chip and release blockers should behave more naturally, and pass protection on quick throws should feel deeper and cleaner. There was also a fix for certain tackle over adjustments, creating unrealistic interior rush lanes, which is the kind of thing that can make the pocket collapse in ways that just do not feel right. Play action pass protection also got cleaned up, so blockers drop back to a more appropriate depth, which should help the whole fake handoff look and feel more convincing. The pass rush and defensive front got a lot of attention too. Stunt logic has been improved, and there were multiple fixes for pirate stunts, causing protection to leave rushers unblocked. That alone is a huge one because if a stunt is supposed to create pressure, it should do it in a believable way, not because the offensive line just forgot what it was doing. Defensive tackle loop behavior on stunts was also improved, so collisions and spacing issues happen less often. The jump to snap feedback is now supposed to match the actual timing window better, and there is even UI feedback for successful pass rush timing when you are using player lock. That is the kind of small touch that makes the game easier to read in the middle of a play. The timing window itself was adjusted too, so if you have felt like pass rush timing was a little off, this should help make it feel more responsive. Defenders should also do a better job shedding blocks in the proper run fit direction, and run block double team shed triggers were improved as well. Defense in the air got some important work too. Defenders should now attack jump balls and interception attempts with better catch points, which means those high point plays should look and play more like actual football instead of random animation roulette. Catch tackle interactions and knockout chances in contested situations were improved, and there was a fix for defenders failing to trigger catch tackles when they should have. They also fixed an issue where catch holes could appear on accurately thrown high point bullet passes, which is the kind of thing that can make a good throw feel unfairly punished. Another fix dealt with defenders coming out of hit reactions and incorrectly switching into chase ball behavior during catch interactions. That is a lot of technical language, sure, but the big picture is simple. Defending the ball in the air should be more reliable and should make more sense from play to play. Coverage got a very long list of changes, and some of them are pretty specific. Cover 3 match logic was improved against 4 strong looks, so the weak side seam flat behaves with better tempo and does not widen too much. There was also a fix for an outside third defender in cover 3 blitz, matching the wrong route instead of dropping into the right assignment. In cover 3 match skinny, a specific situation involving the number 3 receiver and a tight end on a drag route was cleaned up so that corner route no longer leaves the receiver wide open as often. Safeties in buzz coverage and 3 high structures should no longer slow down in the wrong way. Bracket and double team logic got updated so the deep defender can take better angles, and hook curl defenders in cover 3 match were fixed so they stopped playing the wrong rules against bunch looks after underneath or over the top adjustments. Stubby and stump push logic in cover 4 palms against backside swing routes also got better. And cornerbacks in press alignment can now play MEG in cover 4 quarters. Even the bingo and box check logic for corners and flat defenders got pattern recognition improvements. That is a mouthful, but what it really means is the AI should be less likely to completely blow a coverage assignment because of a weird edge case. They also increased CPU coaching variety using different coverage checks and plaster settings, and that should make different teams feel more like their coaching style. More aggressive coaches are going to lean into tighter and more aggressive adjustments, while conservative teams should stay safer and keep the defense more controlled. That is a good step because it gives the CPU a little more identity. They also touched coaching adjustments directly. The untarget defender behavior was fixed when showing blitz, and that same adjustment no longer works on run plays. You can still use target defender at the line of scrimmage on run plays, but the old version was giving users a way to do something it should not have allowed. They also fixed untarget user defender applying while controlling a defensive lineman, and custom adjustment menus now let you scroll by subsection properly. That sounds minor, but anybody who has spent time in the coaching menus knows how annoying it is when a setup screen gets in your way. Another fix stopped CPU zone strategy changes from being revealed to the offense after an audible, which is exactly the kind of thing that should never have been visible in the first place. Play action got some love as well. Defender aggression coaching adjustments now affect run fits against play action in a more believable way. Aggressive settings should make second level defenders trigger downhill faster, which opens up space behind them, while conservative settings should keep them disciplined enough to stay under intermediate routes and react better when the offense is trying to fool them. That is a really nice change because it gives the coaching adjustment more real weight. It should matter whether you are trying to sell out against the run or sit back and protect the middle of the field. There are also a handful of general gameplay fixes that close up some weird loopholes and bugs. Formation shifts that could be used to manipulate personnel into heavy sets with 4 or 5 receivers were fixed. The third overtime starting spot bug was corrected, so teams are placed at the 3-yard line instead of the 33-yard line in that specific situation. The dive tutorial now actually registers dive actions, which is kind of funny to say out loud because something that simple should absolutely work, but at least it has been addressed. Players freezing in place after certain get-up animations were fixed. Post-play issues with get-ups and frozen players were cleaned up. A safety getting stuck during a specific nickel blitz was fixed, and unintended stiff arm behavior in online play a friend was removed. These are the sorts of issues that do not always make the loudest noise online, but they absolutely shape how polished the game feels. Then there are the playbook additions, which is always fun for people who like testing new schemes. Several defensive playbooks got new cover 4 zone, cover 6 zone, and cover 9 zone plays. Plus, there are new press quarters plays and new blitzes added to the 3-3-5 odd ghost playbook. The 4-2-5 zone pressure playbook also got 4-3 under wide, which gives it a true base defense option. That kind of addition is important because it gives players more ways to build around a scheme instead of forcing the same looks over and over. The new coverages are preset zone plays that do not match and play vision break rules against every formation, so the safeties are not part of the run fit in the same way. That should matter for players who want to build more specific defensive identities. The patch notes also mention a few things that the gameplay team is still looking at. Speed boosting, slot defensive backs not flipping when they should, man coverage effectiveness, hurry up sometimes resetting custom adjustments, and coverage shells not always being respected are all still on the list. That is useful because it gives you a sense of what they know is still under review. It also means this update is not being treated like the final answer to every issue, which is probably the right way to handle a game this complex. Now let us get into Dynasty, because this is where a lot of players are probably going to spend most of their time. There is a note up front about a massive roster update coming later this month before week 0, so if you are thinking about starting a new Dynasty with the latest athletes, that is something to keep in mind. The Dynasty Blueprint got some nice improvements, including a new week summary screen at end of season recap that shows your budget and changes year over year. That is the kind of thing that makes long-term management easier to follow. The players leaving screen now includes NIL in the reason column. CP teams were fixed, so they do not waste money buying equipment that is not part of the intended league creation setup. And you now get a confirmation pop-up when removing equipment, so you know you will not get Dynasty points back from that move. Facility longevity equipment was fixed too, along with some support staff hiring screen formatting issues. You can now use the right stick to quickly offer max or minimum amounts when dealing with NIL or coordinator offers, which should save a ton of time. AD expectations were cleaned up as well. Goal pass and fail animations were added. New goals now appear in preseason week instead of week 0, and invalid goals will be replaced properly when you advance. They fixed the state recruiting issue, where you could be told to recruit players from a state that did not even have enough players to recruit, which is a pretty rough bug to run into. Facility upgrade goals are now checked at the correct time, and the Central Michigan rivalry goal was updated to Western Michigan. Small detail, but that is the sort of thing fans will notice. The coaching carousel got important balancing changes. First-year head coaches are now less likely to be fired right away, and top prestige coaches at lower prestige schools are harder to fire. Coach retirement logic was adjusted so the target retirement age goes up a bit, and there were fixes for offer management problems when you had already made 6 offers. You can also now make coordinator offers again after moving from coordinator to head coach, which is the kind of workflow issue that should never block your progression. New columns were added to the coordinator hiring screen too, including archetype, prestige, pipeline, and level. That makes the hiring process much easier to read. They also added a few new coaches, and a new dynasty is required for those names to appear in-game. That is worth remembering if you are expecting those additions to show up in an old save. Weekly practice plan also got fixes. Full practice No longer heals more wear and tear than limited practice. Injuries should not pop up when injuries are set to off, and players with multi-week injuries will not show up in the week off confirmation pop up the wrong way. That should make weekly management a lot less frustrating. Under the general Dynasty updates, Pro Potential now takes roster composition and projected draft rounds into account as a secondary factor, which should help with tie breaks for teams that have no historical picks at a position. Players with the Pro Potential deal breaker now have a higher chance of going pro, and the default gameplay injury slider was lowered to 10 to reduce the number of injuries. That is a pretty meaningful recommendation, because if your current Dynasty is getting too injury heavy, the patch notes specifically tell you to adjust the slider from 25 to 10. They also added the Shamrock Series game featuring Wisconsin and Notre Dame at Lambeau Field in Week 1 for Dynasty or Road to Glory, though that requires a new Dynasty. There were fixes for Hawaii's proximity to home grade, player progression costs were rebalanced, recruit quality was improved at the highest tiers. The Mountain West abbreviation is now MW, and wear and tear impacts should match better between front end and in-game. There are more recruiting fixes too, including board access when recruiting is unavailable, competitive visit colors, gray out issues after toggling users to autopilot, gem recruits being able to go over 99, and visits not being removed after hard commit elsewhere. Team history and season history views were also polished up, with your team now auto-focused in the spreadsheets and a dev trait column added in the encourage transfer screen. They also added the ability to view a team schedule from team historical stats, updated founding years for North Dakota State and Sacramento State, fixed an ownership transfer issue in Online Dynasty with team builder teams, and wrapped it all up with multiple stability fixes. So overall, this is a strong first major update. It is not just one giant change to one mode or one mechanic. It is a real pass over the game that touches the parts people have been complaining about the most. Blocking should feel better. Defensive logic should be more reliable. Coaching choices should matter more. Dynasty should be cleaner to manage, and a lot of the weird little bugs that can slowly wear on you have been handled. It is the kind of patch that should make the game feel more settled, even if there are still a few things the team is actively watching and planning to revisit later on.